The day I moved into apartment 3B, I already regretted it. The cheap apartment felt less like a bargain and more like a warning. The peeling paint whispered that anyone who stayed here was courting trouble. I didn't care. After my last roommate ghosted me, not in the supernatural way, I needed a place fast. And this crumbling relic of a building in downtown Chicago fit the bill. Boxes piled around me like silent witnesses as I surveyed the living room, grimy carpet and all. The hum of the city outside barely penetrated the thick windows, making the silence inside almost sacred. Or maybe ominous. I shrugged. Silence or not, it was my sanctuary now, however questionable. The first night was the worst. I set up my small mattress in the corner and tried to read a book, but sleep wouldn't come. Somewhere between the hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the old pipes, I felt it. A presence not hostile, but unmistakably there. I told myself it was the apartment settling, the usual tricks of a tired mind. But then I felt the brush of cold air behind me, like a whisper brushing the nape of my neck, and my chest tightened. I must be losing it, I muttered, clutching my blanket like a lifeline. The moment I closed my eyes, a shadow coalesced on the far side of the room. It was faint at first, but I swear it was watching me. I couldn't move. And then, impossibly, it was closer. I felt arms wrap around Menet, harsh, but tender, almost desperate. I screamed, half in terror, half in disbelief, and the figure vanished. The room returned to silence, and I sat there trembling, questioning my sanity. Night after night, the same thing happened. Always around 2 a.m., always gentle, always just long enough to stir something in my chest I couldn't name. Slowly, I realized it wasn't trying to scare me. The ghost, or whatever it was, seemed lonely, waiting for someone to notice him. Curiosity overcame fear one night. I whispered into the dark, "Who are you, Eli?" The voice was soft, fragile, almost like a sigh, and it brushed past my ears. I just want to feel alive again. Alive. That word stuck in my chest. Something about it made me want to reach out, even though reaching out meant embracing a ghost. "Why me?" I asked, voice barely audible. "You're warm," Eli replied, and I felt his presence squeeze me gently, an embrace filled with both yearning and gratitude. It was intimate, startling, and yet comforting. Over the next few weeks, I learned his rhythm. Nights of subtle touches, whispers of his old life, sketches appearing on my desk in the morning that weren't there before, lines, faces, colors that no one but an artist could conjure. I started talking to him while he lingered, telling him about my day, about my mistakes, my jokes that fell flat at work, my dreams. I didn't know if he could hear me or if it mattered. Then, one night, emboldened by sleep deprivation and loneliness, I said, "Do you want to stay?" "I don't stay," he whispered, but the air shifted around me, and for a fleeting moment, I felt his smile against my back. I laughed softly, leaning into where his arms had wrapped around me. "Then maybe you can just visit." And so he did. Every night he came. Every night he held me. Every night, I woke up feeling more alive than I had in years, my chest heavy with emotions I didn't fully understand. Love, maybe? Or something tenderer, something that existed between heartbeat and breath. It wasn't long before the sketches became portraits of me, captured in the most vulnerable moments, laughing alone at a silly joke, staring out the window with a faraway expression, curling on the sofa with a book. I would wake up, heart clenching and eyes watering, seeing myself through Eli's eyes. And in that, I realized I mattered. To him, anyway. And that realization tore through me in the best way possible. But not all nights were gentle. Sometimes he came trembling, full of fear and regret. He told me about the accident, the one that tethered him here, the one that ended his life too soon. His stories were raw, filled with pain, guilt, and fragments of dreams that never came true. I listened. I cried with him even though he wasn't flesh and blood. I began leaving him small gifts, bits of my life as offerings. A cup of tea, a blanket folded neatly on the sofa, a sketch pad for him to use if he wanted. And he accepted them in silence, in the way only ghosts could, with a presence that filled the room with warmth even as it haunted me. One particularly harsh winter night, a blizzard rattling the windows and wind whistling down the cracks, Eli seemed different. He was jittery, restless, pacing in a way that made me ache to see him so unsettled. "I'm leaving," he whispered. My stomach dropped. "Leaving?" I echoed, fear tangling with disbelief. "Where would you go?" "I can't stay long. I can't take much of this world anymore." His voice was pained, desperate. "It's too bright, too loud, too alive for me." But I couldn't let him gone it after what he had given me, the way he had awakened something I thought was dead inside. "Then stay here, with me, just a little longer." He paused, and I felt him hesitate, felt the pull of his longing against the pull of his constraints. Slowly, his arms wrapped around me, tighter than ever. It was more than a hug. It was a lifeline, and in that embrace, for the first time, I whispered, "I love you." Silence followed, and then a warmth that made the room glow in a way I could almost see, a weightlessness, a fleeting joy. "I think I might love you too," he breathed. "Even if I can't, stay forever." From that night on, we found rhythm in our impossible relationship. Days were mine, nights were his. He didn't materialize in the morning, but sometimes a sketch or a note waited for me on the table. "Coffee smells better with you," or "Your laugh is my favorite song." I laughed, teared up, sometimes both. And every night, as the city slept, Eli returned, and we existed in that small pocket of time, defying the rules of life and death, of love and loss. I began to see the world differently, through the lens of a heart both haunted and alive. The neighbors whispered about strange noises, but I didn't care. I didn't care about the peeling paint, the cold drafts, or even the isolation. Because I had Himelian somehow, that made the apartment the warmest place in the world. Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and our nights became more tender, more daring. I felt his hands linger on my shoulders, my waist, my face. I felt the brush of his lips not in the way that belonged to the living, but in the way that left an imprint on my soul. I began to imagine what it would be like if he were alive, if the world could bend enough to let us exist together. But reality was a cruel companion, reminding me that our love existed only in the twilight hours, in the space between heartbeat and breath. Still, I loved him. I loved him fiercely, dangerously, with a passion that made me ache and cry and laugh in the same hour. And he loved me in his own fragile, spectral way. And that was enough. Eli began to change after a particularly stormy night. He seemed brighter, more present, more alive in his own way. I noticed it when he lingered longer in the mornings, when his sketches carried color and life like never before. One night I asked, "Are you okay?" "I think I'm healing," he said softly. "I didn't realize it before, but holding on to you, being part of your world, it's made me whole again." I blinked back tears, unsure if I was crying from happiness or sorrow. "Does that mean you might stay?" He smiled, ghostly and bright, and said, "I'll always come back, always, as long as you need me." And somehow, that promise was enough to make me believe in miracles, in love that defies reason, in the quiet power of being seen and held, even when the world tells you you shouldn't exist. Night after night, I held him back. Night after night, he held me. And together, in that little apartment tucked away in the noisy streets of Chicago, we learned that love doesn't always need flesh to exist, doesn't always need sunlight or permanency, just needs presence, warmth, and the courage to reach out even when the world says you can't. I never wanted to leave apartment 3B again, because it was here in the dim light with peeling paint and a draft under the door that I had found him, and in finding him I had found myself. Even now, some nights, when the city is quiet and the wind ruffles the blinds, I feel him press against me, and I think, life is fleeting, love is fragile, and yet, miracles do happen. And in that fleeting miracle, we were whole. Days passed in a strange, comforting routine. I woke, worked, laughed at the little absurdities of life, then waited for night to fall. Nights were ours, no matter how fleeting. Eli's presence had begun to shape me. I noticed details in life I had overlooked. The way the streetlight flickered across the floor, the subtle scent of rain on concrete, the sound of the heater rattling as if it were a heartbeat. All of it seemed more vivid when I shared it with him, or when he shared his ghostly perception with me. Sometimes I caught glimpses of his frustration, though. There were nights when his embrace was trembling, shaky, and I would feel his unease as sharply as if he were alive. "What's wrong?" I whispered one night, tucking my hands into his invisible embrace. He hesitated. "It's this world. I see it, and it's so loud, so overwhelming. I don't belong here. Not really." "You belong with me," I said firmly, ignoring the cold that clung to him. "That's enough." But even I began to notice cracks in the fragile happiness we had built. Friends called me crazy, something about talking to shadows or living in a fantasy. I tried to explain, but words failed me. How could I explain that the warm weight of his arms against mine was more real than the world outside the walls? How could I make them understand that sometimes a ghost could make you feel more alive than any living person ever could? Then, a week after one particularly bitter snowstorm, I heard a knock. Not at my door, but inside the apartment, soft, deliberate, almost hesitant. "Who's there?" I called. No answer, but the air shifted. The shadows deepened, then lightened as if a presence was moving closer. My pulse quickened. "Eli?" I asked. "Yes," came the faint, ethereal whisper, and suddenly, I felt him close, real, tender. But something was different. There was an edge to him I hadn't noticed before, a strain beneath the softness. "I need to show you something," he murmured. The air seemed to pulse around me, and then I saw it. A sketch, larger than anything he had ever left before. It was pinned to the wall, a sprawling scene of a city I recognized, Chicago, but bathed in the most haunting twilight. In the center, a figure curled on a sofa, arms wrapped around an invisible companion, shadows merging into the light. "Is that me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Yes," he whispered. "And me, and us, but it's not enough. I'm trapped in this half-life, and I don't know how long I can keep coming back." Fear and desperation clamped onto my chest. "Don't leave me. Don't do that." He lingered, almost tangible in the dim light. "I want to stay," he said, "but I can't. I'm tied to something beyond you, beyond this world. I don't know how to fix it." I swallowed, fighting tears. "Then let me help you. We'll find a way. We'll figure it out together." For a moment, I thought he might vanish, but then the warmth of his embrace pressed against me again. Stronger, desperate. It was a lifeline for both of us. The next days were a blur of plans and small victories. I scoured old records, visited libraries, searched the internet for accounts of spirits, hauntings, anyone who could guide me in helping him remain or at least sustain his presence longer. Eli accompanied me in spirit, hovering by my shoulder, leaving traces of sketches and drawings as if encouraging me. "Do you think they'll help?" I asked one night, staring at the cold glow of the computer screen. "I don't know," he admitted, "but even if they can't, just trying. It makes me feel alive." That became our mantra, trying. Even when the world mocked us, even when our love was impossible, we tried. And in trying, we discovered more of each other than we had thought possible. One evening, as summer approached and the city breathed a warm, humid sigh, Eli became unusually still. He hovered above the sofa, gazing at me with eyes that held both longing and fear. "I need to show you something else," he whispered. The air shimmered, and suddenly the room transformed. The peeling paint seemed to fade, the cold draft disappeared, replaced by a glow that was almost tangible. In the center, a canvas appeared, larger than any he had ever left. It depicted a man standing on a balcony overlooking the city, arms outstretched to the sky, with a figure behind him, transparent yet radiant. The city below was alive, vibrant, and yet somehow lonely, just like us. "This is incredible," I breathed. "I wanted you to see," he said softly. I wanted you to know that even in death, I've never stopped feeling. I moved closer, my fingers brushing the edge of the canvas. You've made me feel everything I didn't know I was capable of feeling. Love, longing, fear, joy, even sadness. You've made me human again. He hesitated, a shiver passing through the air as if he were trembling with the weight of unspoken words. Then, slowly, he pressed against me more solidly than before. I'm scared, he admitted. Of leaving, of never feeling this again, of losing you. I held him tighter. You won't lose me. Even if you have to go, even if the world takes you, you'll always be part of me. We stayed like that until the first rays of morning broke through the blinds, casting golden light across the room. For a brief moment, he seemed almost alive, warm, tangible, and present. But as sunlight strengthened, he began to fade, leaving behind a whisper, I'll be back tonight. And he was. Our nights became more daring. I learned to anticipate his presence, greeting him with laughter and gentle touches, sometimes just resting my head against where his chest would be. I felt his warmth, his heartbeat in a way that defied reality, and I responded with a tenderness I never knew I had. We danced in silence, our movements guided by instinct rather than gravity, floating in a world that belonged only to us. Then, one night, everything changed. A neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, the elderly woman from across the hall, knocked and caught me in the middle of an embrace. She froze, eyes wide, and whispered, Is someone with you? I hesitated, not knowing what to say. Just someone who needed me, I murmured, vague and evasive. Her eyes narrowed. I think you need to be careful. You don't know what kind of trouble you're inviting into your life. I smiled faintly, but inside, panic curled. What if she did? What if someone discovered Eli? My sanctuary was delicate, fragile, and now threatened. That night, Eli was quieter than usual. His embrace lacked the usual warmth, tinged with worry. Are you afraid? I asked softly. Yes, he admitted. Not of you, but of them. Of the living who can't understand. I don't want to disappear. I held him close, whispering, Then we'll be careful, but we can't stop loving each other because of fear. He stayed, reluctant but present. And I realized then that our love wasn't just about intimacy, it was about survival, about finding a way to exist in a world that refused to acknowledge us. Weeks later, I discovered an old diary tucked behind a loose brick in the apartment wall. It belonged to him, written in delicate, flowing handwriting. His thoughts, his fears, his dreams all laid bare. I read about his life as an artist, the tragedy that tethered him here, and his longing for connection. My heart broke and swelled simultaneously. I understood him in ways I never had before. That night, I whispered, I've read your story. I know you. I love all of you. I've been waiting to hear that, he murmured, and for the first time, he lingered even as sunlight crept across the room. His touch was softer, more intimate, as if he were grounding himself in me, holding on to what little of the world he could. The following months brought small victories. The neighbors grew used to the strange noises, my life outside became steadier, and Eli, he became more present. The sketches on the walls became intricate, vibrant, alive. I watched him create, watching his joy in ways I could almost see with my own eyes. And then came the night that changed everything. A particularly harsh thunderstorm rattled the city, lightning illuminating the room in violent flashes. I woke to Eli's presence, stronger than ever, trembling not from cold, but from fear. They found me, he whispered. Someone knows about me. My heart pounded. Who? How? What do they want? I don't know, he admitted. But I might not be able to stay if they come. His voice faltered, and I felt his despair as though it were mine. I pressed my hand to the space where his chest would be. Then we fight, I said firmly. Whatever it takes, we fight. Together. For the first time, we weren't just two souls clinging to a fragile routine, we were allies, partners, lovers defying impossible odds. That night, we held each other as the storm raged outside, whispering promises and memories, laughter and tears, until the city fell silent and calm returned. And in that silence, I realized something profound. Even a love that defies life and death can grow, thrive, and endure if two hearts refuse to let go. The days after the storm were quiet, almost eerily so. But there was an intensity in our silence, a tension that neither of us could ignore. Eli's presence was restless, flickering like a candle in the wind. I could feel it in the way he hovered near me, arms barely brushing my shoulders, almost hesitant to fully embrace. "I'm scared," he whispered one night, as we lay curled together on the sofa. His form shimmered faintly in the moonlight, translucent yet undeniably there. "What if they come back? What if I can't stay?" "You're not alone," I reassured him, holding him as close as I dared. "We'll face it together, no matter what." But words weren't enough. Over the following nights, subtle disturbances started to appear. Objects slightly moved, sketches on the wall altered, shadows behaving oddly. It was as if the apartment itself sensed something was wrong. Eli was growing weaker, fading for longer stretches during the day, and I could feel the desperation in his touch each night. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. I started digging into the history of the apartment, searching for anyone who might have knowledge of Eli's past or the forces binding him here. Hours turned into days as I scoured public records, old newspaper articles, and online forums about hauntings. And then I found it. A name, a record of a young artist named Eli Hartman who had died tragically in that very building nearly a decade ago. The cause? A freak accident in his studio, leaving him trapped in the liminal space between life and death. My heart ached as I read through his life story, the dreams he had never fulfilled, the love he had never known in life. And yet, here he was visiting me, needing me, teaching me how to live and feel again. That night, I confronted him with what I had found. "Eli, I know your story. I know who you are." He hovered closer, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. You read it." I had to. I needed to understand you, to understand us. I reached out, touching the space where his cheek would be, feeling the warmth that only he could give. "And I love you, every piece of you." He shivered, the light around him flickering. "I want to stay," he whispered. "More than anything, but the world is pulling me away. I can feel it." We clung to each other all night, silently vowing to fight whatever forces threatened us. And fight we did. I searched for rituals, for people who might help anchor him, who could give him the chance to remain in our world. It felt impossible, like trying to trap sunlight in my hands. But for the first time, I realized that love, real, fierce, unrelenting love, could push even the impossible toward possibility. Then came the night when everything changed. I woke to the apartment shaking, shadows swirling unnaturally, and a cold wind unlike any we had felt before. Eli appeared, more solid than ever, but his eyes were wide with fear. "They're here," he whispered. "They don't want me to stay. They want to pull me away." I didn't hesitate. I reached for him, holding him tighter than ever before. "Not if I can help it. You're not going anywhere." The room erupted in chaos. Objects flew across the floor, lights flickered violently, and the air was thick with energy I couldn't identify. I felt Eli struggling, the pressure of some invisible force trying to drag him away from me. My mind raced, desperate for a solution. And then I remembered something from his diary, a passage about his love for the living world, the moments, the smells, the laughter, the touch of human warmth. I held his hands where his hands would be and whispered, "Feel me, feel us, feel life." He clung to my voice, to my presence, as if it were a lifeline. Slowly, steadily, he grew brighter, more tangible, resisting the pull of whatever had come to claim him. I poured every ounce of love I had into him, reminding the universe, that his existence here mattered, that he mattered to me. And then, in a brilliant flash of light, everything stilled. The chaos stopped. Eli's form solidified, glowing faintly but fully present. He collapsed into my arms, exhausted but alive in a way he had never been before. I did it, he whispered, voice trembling. I'm here. I'm really here. Tears streamed down my face as I held him, feeling the warmth, the weight, the undeniable reality of him. You're here. You're really here. And I'm never letting go. Over the following days, the apartment transformed not physically, but emotionally. Eli could move through the space freely now, fully present, fully alive. He explored the city with me, walked under the sun, felt the wind on his face, tasted coffee, laughed at the absurdities of life. Every sensation that had been denied to him for years was now his, and he shared each one with me as if discovering life for the first time. Our love, once hidden in the shadows, became a living, breathing force. We dared to be intimate, dared to dream, dared to plan a life together that was no longer limited by the constraints of death. Friends began to notice the change in how vibrant I had become, how my laughter was freer, my eyes brighter. I never explained Eli to them. I didn't need to. The joy he brought me was enough. One evening, as we watched the sunset from my apartment balcony, Eli leaned against me, head resting on my shoulder. The city stretched below us, bathed in orange and gold. I never thought I'd feel this again, he whispered. Life, love, it's overwhelming. I know, I replied, wrapping my arm around him. But you're here. We're here. And that's enough. He smiled, faint but radiant. It's more than enough. With you, I feel alive in every way I was missing. And I realized then that love, true, unyielding love, could bridge any gap. Between life and death, between fear and hope, between loneliness and connection. Eli and I had found each other, had fought for each other, and had emerged stronger, alive, and whole. We continued to explore life together, embracing both its joys and its challenges. Eli painted again, his art more vibrant than ever, capturing not only our love but the beauty and fragility of the world around us. I supported him, encouraged him, and learned from him in ways I could never have imagined. Eventually, we moved out of apartment 3B, taking our memories with us. The place no longer a prison but a sanctuary that had taught us how to love, how to survive, and how to believe in miracles. The world outside was no longer threatening, it was ours to explore, to shape, to live fully within. And through it all, the bond between us remained unbreakable. Eli, once a ghost longing for life, and I, a lonely soul seeking connection, had found in each other the courage to love, the strength to endure, and the joy of truly being alive. As we stood together on a quiet street in Chicago one night, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, I whispered, "We made it. We're alive. We have each other. And that's everything," he replied, pressing his forehead to mine. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it. Love, even against impossible odds, could triumph. Life, fragile and fleeting, was brighter when shared. And together we would continue to defy the limits of the world, one heartbeat at a time. In the end, Eli wasn't just a ghost anymore. He was my partner, my love, my life. And I, lonely, frightened, uncertain, had found the courage to embrace him, to embrace love, and to embrace life in all its complexity, beauty, and fleeting wonder. The nights of quiet embraces continued, but now, they were no longer tinged with fear or sadness. We laughed, we loved, we lived. The apartment, the city, the world, it all felt full, vibrant, and ours. And as I held him, truly alive for the first time, I realized that our story wasn't about ghosts or hauntings, it was about love's ability to bring life where there was none, to heal where there was pain, and to shine even in the darkest places. Eli smiled up at me, eyes sparkling. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" I asked, brushing a hand through his hair. "For showing me that even in death, life can still be beautiful, when love is alive." I smiled back, heart full. "And thank you for showing me how to feel again." We kissed, slow and tender, not as a ghost and a human, but as two people, two souls finally together, finally alive, finally free. And in that kiss, I knew our love had survived. Our love had conquered impossibility. And together we would continue to live, to love, to be present in a world that had once denied us both. For the first time, I understood what it meant to truly be alive. And beside me, Eli felt it too. The city hummed around us, indifferent and yet infinitely beautiful. And in that quiet, shared moment, we knew that nothing, neither death, nor fear, nor society could ever take this from us. We had each other, and that was everything. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.